Your name is Burt
Burt
Cazden?
Cazden.
Cazden.
Very good. Well, I'm a second generation American. I was born in New York City. And
When?
in February 4th, 1934, which makes me 80 years old.
You are young.
Yeah, I mean, for you, Korean War veteran. I didn't get in the Navy until 1953, right at the end of before the armistice. And I went to public school. I went to the University of California on the GI Bill afterwards.
Ah,
And $110 a month, paid for everything.
yeah.
It's amazing. It went $110 went a long way in those days.
What was your family background? Brother, sister, mother,
I had
father?
a mother and father. They stayed together, like so many people. That doesn't happen. My father was he was a civil engineer. In the First World War, he made naval mines.
Ah,
Then after that, he decided to become something else, became an MD. So he was a physician.
ah.
And my mother was home. She didn't want to be home, but she had to be. She wanted to do other things. And she was a nurse, actually. And the first time I ever saw warships was at the end of World War II. We lived on Upper Manhattan. We were up high in Washington Heights. And the Hudson River, which is about a mile wide, all the warships were anchored in the middle, all the way up. And President Truman came up and reviewed the ships, and some of them were the Missouri, the famous ships, Enterprise, so forth, you know, all the famous ships from World War II. And every time he got close to the ship, they would start a 21-gun salute. And 21-gun salute all the way up the Hudson River. It was magnificent. Plus, there's one other thing. It was either 1,200 or 1,800 planes from the carriers flew up on the Manhattan side, up, I don't know how far up because I couldn't see, then down on the Jersey side. And they were all flying low and slow, so you could see their faces just about. It was absolutely magnificent. I was thrilled.
When did you finish your high school?
1951,
In New York City?
New York City.
And what were you doing? Did you know about Korea? Did you know about the Korean War broke
Oh,
out?
absolutely.
How? Tell me about it. What were you doing when the Korean War broke
I
out?
was in school. I was in high school.
Absolutely. And?
And I heard that, and I agreed with President Truman, absolutely, that we should have intervened, because it was naked aggression. It was obvious to me.
Mhm.
There was no doubt in my mind whatsoever. And I was a little too young to go in at that time. I was only a junior.
Right.
I became a senior
Senior in 19.
in 1951. And I didn't go right into the Navy afterwards. I tried to go to college, and I was too young and immature, and didn't know what I was doing, so I didn't do well in college. And then,
What college were you in?
well, I went to Cornell for 1 year, and I was on probation after the end of that year.
You were in Cornell?
Cornell.
Ithaca Cornell.
Ithaca, you got it right. Ithaca.
So you had a pretty good GPA at the time.
Well, they accepted me.
Huh.
I didn't know it, but I have, and I still have it, dyslexia. I didn't know that. So my learning was a different way. I read slowly. And it handicapped me later, because I went to medical school and I couldn't get all of it. It was just too much. So I switched to optometry. I became an optometrist. That was at the University of California. That's another lifetime after that.
So did you enlist or were you
I enlisted, yes,
Navy?
Navy.
Why?
I had an uncle who was in the First World War. He was a Scotsman. He told me lots of stories. He was not hesitant to talk about his experience. And I didn't want any part of a foxhole in Korea. I would much prefer to be in the Navy. And I don't care if we had to shoot and get shot at, but I would rather be in the Navy.
Why do you have to enlist? You were able to continue on your college education.
I wasn't no, I was working, because I was not a good student. I didn't know how to study. I was too immature to be
But you
perfect.
were matriculated into the Cornell University.
Yes, I did, and I was on probation after that.
Oh my goodness.
Academic probation, or
I didn't know how to study. You know, it was a big shock, first time away from home also. So then we moved to California. Right after that year, 52, went to California. And I started junior college, and I worked in a machine shop. And then I got drafted for the Army.
Oh, you were drafted in.
And I said, I'm not going in the Army, I'm going in the Navy, so I enlisted.
That's why you you
That's
enlisted.
why I enlisted. Of course, there was the Air Force too, but
Where did you get the basic training?
San Diego, it's long gone. Actually, Pendleton is right next to San Diego, that's the Marines. And the company I was in the Navy was in Camp Elliott, which was part of Pendleton, but they closed that down after us.
What was your specialty?
Oh, in the Navy, well, in boot camp, everybody does the same thing.
Right.
I went to electronics school, so I became an electronic technician.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was young and stupid, I turned down the opportunity to get flight training.
Well, at least you are not in the foxhole.
I was not in a foxhole, no. But I heard a rumor, which could have been true, that right out of boot camp, you go on a ship, you go over to Korea, and then because you're the low man on the totem pole, they put you in a whaleboat, they send you into Korea so you can spot for the guns. It sounded true. I don't know if it was. But half the company I was in boot camp went on the cruiser Los Angeles, which had the record for how many shots it fired in North Korea. It's 8-inch cruiser, it was a heavy cruiser. So I guess they were replacing casualties. I don't know. That's a pure guess. The Navy has a nice word for rumor, it's called scuttlebutt. I like that word better.
So when did you leave for Korea?
Never went to Korea,
You never went to Korea.
never.
Hmm.
I was, after ET school, I just go where they told me, gotta follow orders.
Yeah.
They put me on a destroyer, Norfolk, Virginia. And the first cruise I took was in the North Atlantic.
I see.
That's indelible up here, first cruise,
Mm-hmm.
because the waves were 45 to 50 foot high. I can't forget that, ever,
Oh.
ever. But I never got seasick. I was lucky. I was one of the lucky ones. Never got seasick.
Maybe your stomach made out of iron.
I don't think so. I think it's just pure luck. This
Yes.
is the Eugene A. Green,
Hmm.
and he was
Or steel.
a dive bomber pilot who died in the Battle of Midway, and he flew off of the Enterprise. So they named the ship after him.
So that's the ship that you were in.
That's the first ship I was on, right? That's the destroyer. And it doesn't exist anymore. They have modified it so much. There is a class of ship like this up in Massachusetts. Same class as this, And I went aboard it, and I couldn't recognize that, they changed it so much. Took off the guns, put on a helicopter pad, and, you know, just kept modifying it. The second ship is a small one. It's 600 or no, 890 tons, tiny. And it was an ex-minesweeper. Now during the Second World War, it got 8 battle stars. But it was converted to a geodetic survey ship, as you can see it. It was up in the Arctic. And that was an adventure, because we were not set up to break ice, but we broke ice by ramming it. It's like running into a brick wall.
Yeah.
We kept on doing it again, over and over again.
You guys never listen, right?
We were leading the fleet, because if you.
What you were supposed to do, right? Rather than just break the
As a sailor, I just obey orders.
Yeah.
You know, they tell me what to do and I do it. And sometimes, you know, in the Navy, you don't say yes, sir, all the time. Sometimes you say aye, aye, sir.
Aye.
I still say that.
Yeah. So when did you finish your service?
4 years, so at 57 I got out.
57?
And I grew up, and I was motivated to go back to college, and I made it in the University of California.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
You've never been into Korea,
never.
and you enlisted in 1953 when
Correct.
the Korean War was almost over.
It was still going, and I didn't know, nobody knew when it was gonna end.
Right. But you are Korean War veteran. Explain it to me.
Because I was in during the Korean War.
See, Ivy, that's why there are many other U.S. soldiers who are Korean War veteran, but never been in Korean soil.
Right.
You need to know about that.
But for every I'm not sure what the number is. For every soldier that's in the front lines, there's 7 or 8 guys behind the line that never get any action.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been true.
Yeah,
And you name the war, that's always true.
yeah. So, what do you think about that you are the Korean War veteran? Do you have any opinion or any?
I have the highest respect for the guys that went to Korea. Highest respect.
Uh-huh.
And I had a friend, he was the only full-blooded Indian I ever knew. And his children and my children played together.
Mhm.
That's how I knew him. And he was a Marine, and went to Korea. He was there for 2 weeks, and he got wounded. 50 caliber bullet hit his left hand,
Oh.
and he was left-handed. So he had this finger, let's see, this is all leather. He had a thumb and then a metal plate, and he could do things. But he had this part of his hand was gone. And also a Chinese soldier bayoneted him and missed some of the vitals here,
Mm.
but clipped his vocal cord. So he had a kind of a hoarse voice.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to understand everything he said. He was I really liked that man.
Mm-hmm.
And
Any dangerous moment during your service as a Navy sailor?
hanging on, looking up at the 50-foot waves,
Yeah.
that was dangerous. And we were up in the Arctic, and we got hazardous duty pay for that.
Mm.
Because if you go over the side, you have something like 3 minutes before you're dead. So they rigged a big sling on the side of the ship. They didn't have enough time to launch a boat to rescue you. And they would make a pass and pick you up with the sling, if they missed, you're gone. So it was hazardous duty.
How much were you paid during your service? Remember, monthly?
Well, I remember when I became a seaman apprentice, I got $90 a month.
Mhm.
But then I ended up a first class, so
Mhm.
I got 200 something as a first class. I was living high on the hog, and there was no place to spend the money.
Yeah.
So what did you do with your money?
I just saved it,
Huh?
you know, in the bank or something like that.
You didn't play cards?
I wasn't a gambler.
Okay.
And I wasn't much of a drinker. After getting drunk once, when everybody said this was fun, I said, no, this is not fun.
How old were you whenever you enlisted?
Well, I was 19 exactly. It was on my birthday.
Oh, 19.
Exactly 19.
So did you leave back a girlfriend?
Nope.
Or no?
I had no girlfriend.
No girlfriend.
I got married later in life.
After you got out?
Yeah.
And so how long did you serve?
4 years.
4 years.
Active, 4 years inactive.
And you were talking about the foxhole a few minutes ago. Can you kind of explain what that is?
Well, it's my idea of what it is. I just watch movies. I don't know what it is. And then, I used to watch all the war movies. Mm-hmm. And you dig a hole in the ground and get into it and try to hide.
So you never had to do that. You're on a ship.
However, on a destroyer, there's no armor whatsoever. So no matter where you are on the ship, if they're shooting at you, you can get shot.
Right.
There's no way, there's no place to hide. But, it's a little different atmosphere.
What did y'all eat? Like, what were y'all's meals?
We had good food on the Navy, and just about every meal was a hot meal. Because we weren't at battle stations like they were in the Second World War, where you get cold sandwiches because you have to stay there.
Right.
And no, we ate pretty good. Sometimes we had steak. The steak wasn't real tender, but we had steak.
You become grateful.
We had fresh fruit and fresh vegetables for about 2 weeks. After that, it was all canned. And we ran out of milk.
Oh no.
And I'll tell you something that nobody else could eat it either, was powdered eggs. When we had fresh eggs, they would make a platter of eggs this big. Then regulations said you have to serve eggs. So they would make powdered eggs. It was a platter this big. Everybody looked at it and walked right by. I tasted it once. It was inedible. It was just awful. But we didn't have anything else. So they baked bread every day on the ship.
So what did y'all do to keep y'all kind of entertained?
Entertained. When we were tied up, even when it was calm, on the destroyer, there's a gun turret on the back.
Can you hold it up again, please?
On the rear is a gun turret. And by hand, the gunner would go and turn it sideways. So the side of the gun turret was our screen for movies. And this part of the ship is called, the aft end is called the fantail. We'd sit out there and watch a movie. That was it. That was it for entertainment. There was nothing else. A lot of guys gambled. I wasn't a gambler. I didn't enjoy that too much.
Was it allowed to gamble there?
It's never allowed officially, but
Okay.
unofficial, they sort of wink at it.
Okay. How was food?
Not bad.
What kind?
Well, one thing I remember, it was called SOS. You know what that is?
I don't know.
Do you know what it is?
Yes.
What is it?
It's
Well-
called shit on a shingle.
Oh,
It's pretty good if it's made right.
It's called, it wasn't bad. It was chipped beef, cream chipped beef on toast. And I don't even know if you can buy chipped beef.
No, I mean, the way that we make it now, my mom makes it every once in a while, you just get bread and you make white gravy and you put ground beef and salt and pepper.
Ground beef, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how
Oh,
we
I
make
see.
it nowadays.
No,
anyways.
it was chip beef in the Navy. And it was good. And we had Spam. And some days that tasted good.
Some days.
Because that's canned, that's easy to transport.
After your discharge from Navy, you went to University of California,
Correct.
and you talk about you were able to do it with the GI Bill.
Correct.
Did you know that you're going to get the GI Bill before you enlist Navy?
It wasn't a goal, but I have a feeling in the back of my mind I knew about it. I think I did. Because they did the GI Bill for the Second World War vets.
Exactly.
And they continued it. And in my opinion, it's absolutely one of the best government programs ever.
Absolutely. That's
And
what
we
I
should
am.
continue it right now.
So tell me about the GI Bill. Detail how much you got it and how much you spent for what.
$110 a month.
Mm-hmm.
That, I remember I had my own place and the rent was $50 a month. And of course, books, I got to use books when I could. In the University of California then, there was an incidental fee, as I remember, something like $30 a year, a semester. And
How much?
$30 is what I remember. And
That's incidental. What
it was called an incident, it was a free education, but that's why they called it an incidental fee.
So it's like a tuition actually.
They didn't call it tuition.
Incidental.
Yeah,
And that's per semester?
one semester, right.
So that's all you pay, $30?
I paid $20 to join, to get a card for the ASUC, the Associated Students of University.
Yeah.
That allows me to go to football games and basketball games. And I was a member of the baseball team for a while.
You mean UC California?
Correct.
And you said $30 per semester.
It's what I remember. I may be wrong on that, but it was very little. It was affordable.
So roughly you have to pay about $100 per year to go to school, and it costs $50 to rent an apartment.
Correct.
Were you married?
No,
You were single.
single. I got married the last year of school.
So what did you do with the rest of the money? Tell me.
Food and books and a little entertainment.
What did you study?
Well, I went for pre-med to start with. I ended up in medical school one semester, 1 year rather. I was too dyslexic to continue.
Okay.
So I switched to optometry school,
Uh-huh.
and I became an optometrist. I was an optometrist for almost 50 years.
Ah.
I am retired, obviously.
So how long were you in the school?
Well, it was more than 4 years because I switched. I got into medical school after 3 years. Then I went to optometry school for another year. And then I had a problem. I ruptured my disc. And I had to have surgery. Playing baseball, of all things. I bent down to pick up a ground ball and I heard a pop.
When did you enter the University of California?
57.
57. How long did government provide you with the GI Bill?
4 years.
4 years. That's flat, right?
4
So
years.
everybody who retired during that time got 4-year GI Bill.
4 years, correct.
Is there any qualification to get it? Do you accept that you have to apply for it?
You just apply for it. I don't think there's much. They wouldn't give you the money unless you went to school.
Right.
And you had to have a certain number of units, as I remember.
Right.
And I always had more than that, enough, at least 12 or something like that. And they would pay for that. Well, they would pay for other training too. If you wanted to become a pilot, they would pay for
Yeah,
pilot.
I know that.
Yeah. I became a pilot on my own later.
So did the GI Bill cover all of your expenses
No.
for college? No?
Most of them.
Most of them?
All of it.
No, I had a job. I worked at,
But what else do you need to get into the school? I mean, they
well,
don't.
food and books, get expensive.
But you got $110. You're a millionaire.
I'm a millionaire. I may be wrong with the incidental fee, but
Yeah,
I mean, some of the books were $50, $60.
Are you kidding me?
Oh God, yeah, that's cheap now.
In 1957, $50 a
Some of the
book.
books were big fat books.
I think you're also mistaken about that.
I don't know. I don't remember the exact prices, but I had to supplement the $110 with a job, and I worked in the university at odd jobs. Well, I was an electronic technician, so I had that background.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
As long as it had tubes, but when it came time to have transistors, I was lost.
so you have a very positive reaction about this GI Bill, right?
Oh, absolutely,
Uh-huh.
absolutely.
Do you have anything to share with us today for this interview about your service?
Well, as
Anything else?
I said, I really supported the fact that we went into Korea,
Uh-huh.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And I didn't agree with MacArthur that he should, conquer North. We just wanted to stop the war.
Uh-huh.
I agreed much more with Truman and MacArthur. But, we did a good job, and we won because South Korea is free, and they have a marvelous country now.
You know about what's happening after
I've
that?
seen pictures, I've never been there.
Uh-huh.
High rises in Seoul, you got bullet trains, you got a high standard of living. There's one picture, the book I got from South Korea.
Mhm.
I got a book when I went to the anniversary, the 50th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And in it was a picture of Korean Peninsula taken at night. And you can see the DMV. Above it is dark, nothing. Below it is bright.
What about the relationship between U.S. and Korea right now?
Well, not North Korea, they're crazy. But South Korea is marvelous. I mean, see the Hyundais all over the place. I have a friend who just got a Hyundai hybrid. He said it's the best car he ever had. So he's very thrilled with it. And from what I've seen of Korean, materials that they work on, products I mean, they're high quality. They're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have any interest in going and seeing South Korea today?
Well, I don't think I would pay to go because I'm on living on Social Security, but my wife enjoyed it, and she went to see her niece who was stationed in Korea,
Oh.
and that's why she went. And they were having a baby and so forth. They were moving, so they needed some help. So she went there.
Okay.
That's why she went. And went in the tunnels in the DMV. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any children?
I have 3 children.
Are any of them in the military?
No, they're not likely to go. They're rather anti-military, which is their choice,
Most
And
definitely.
I have 3 grandchildren, no 4, and they're not interested in the military. Well, half of them are girls.
No great grandchildren yet, though.
Oh, God, no. My granddaughter's is the oldest, and she is 18.
18.
18.
So high school or college? High school.
I'm gonna go back to California to see her graduate high school.
Thank you very much again for coming for the interview, and we'll let you know when this video is going to be uploaded into the website.